Hey, it's John and Mike, brew-dudes.com, and we did a live stream on the Learn to Homebrew National Day back in early November, and now we have the products of that ill-fated live stream. If you tuned in, I'm sorry. But there was first of all, it was
some technical stuff.
Super hot.
Yeah.
YouTube,
unseasonably hot.
YouTube changed the way that they formatted their videos. Now it's all vertical rather than horizontal because we're living in a TikTok
It's the longest
age.
short on YouTube.
I'm just like, what are we doing here? And then we had Yellow Jacket Hornets.
I ate one almost.
So I'm glad we're taking you down this memory lane.
Yeah.
But there were beers produced during that live stream, and here they are. Well,
Despite
here's
a couple
one of them.
near boilovers. And so this beer is par for the course of everything you just described. So this is, I just want to go through this because I just want to talk to some people about this recipe. So this is the Learn to Homebrew recipe from the AHA for that day, to mark that day. It's an amber ale, and it had some Pilsner dry malt extract. It had some pale malt dry malt extract. And then in the recipe, in order to get the color, it was, it listed 5 ounces of Crystal 40 and 5 ounces of Crystal 80.
Yep.
But it's a 1 gallon recipe. So what does that really mean? Well, I brewed this because 1 gallon is just hard to deal with siphoning. So I scaled it all up to a 3 gallon recipe. So if you multiply 5 ounces by 3, you're basically at 16 ounces, which is almost a pound. So in this recipe, there's in a 3 gallon batch, a pound of Crystal 40 and a pound of Crystal 80. In a 5 gallon batch, we'd be talking almost 1 1/3 pounds of Crystal. That's 2.5 pounds of Crystal malt in what a traditionally, so I'm scaling that up so we can all relate, and we all talk sort of in 5 gallon numbers. It's almost over 2.5 pounds of heavy Crystal malt, and you can taste it in this beer. And then on top of that, because it's an extract-based beer, you're going to struggle to get a drier attenuation because extract doesn't attenuate down as low as a full all-grain beer was. I know it's Learn to Homebrew, and I fully support all-grain extract brewing. I love extract brewing.
We wrote a book on extract brewing.
But we wrote a whole book on it. But in a lot of our extract recipes, we substitute some of that gravity with a little bit of table sugar sometimes to make sure the beer can be dry, because extract tends to not be dry, especially in a recipe where you're going to have a lot of specialty grains. So like a big stout, a really hefty amber, or a really complex brown ale. If you're going extract, you want to pull about 10 points of gravity out of your extract and replace it with table sugar so it dries out, so it's cleaner. What does dry mean? So it's not overly sweet, so it's drier, so it's crisper and easier to digest, easier to drink, and you can have a couple of them without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
This beer, the body of this is still very syrupy. It's finishing at about 10-20, and it fermented. I did everything I could to get this thing to ferment, but it's that extract and it's all that Crystal malt. So I think I understand the point of the beer. The other thing too is this has got nugget, Amarillo, and some EKG in it. I can't even pick up the nugget bitterness in here, and I overdid it because of my estimations. I wasn't going to throw in 82% of a 1 ounce, so I put the whole packet in. Now, to be fair, I think the original starting gravity of this beer was supposed to be about 1056, and because we were live streaming, I boiled a little bit longer than maybe I wanted to, and so my gravity is about 1062. So the gravity, I'll be fair there. My starting gravity is a little bit higher than the recipe intended, but still, even at that, it's still a ton of Crystal malt, and I think you can taste it. I can just smell it from here.
You think you can taste it? That's the overwhelming
factor. I just learned to homebrew. It smells very homebrew, right? It's got that crystal, unfinished rawness to it.
Yeah, right? It brings me back to, early days of home brewing. That's exactly what this is, like the typical amber ale. Like the only thing that's different than the flavor is stronger. I think those amber ale kits that you would get, if you first started home brewing, at least in our history of home brewing, those kits, it was just enough caramel malt to bring a little character to it, and you're like, okay, this is beer. This isn't bad. It just didn't have a lot of like sharpness to it for sure. It was kind of dull. But this is just like, now I know if you were to like really amplify the crystal malt flavor of any of your amber beers, this is what it would be.
Yeah. You remember we tend to do a lot of off flavor series. This is cloying. That's what this is, right? There's just so much residual body, residual sugar.
Yeah.
It's cloying. It's just, I think the flavor, there's a lot of biscuit here. There's a lot of malt character here. And I like that.
Yeah.
It's just that they're sitting on top of it all is this sticky, crystal heaviness that's just a little bit hard to push through.
I would say that I'm getting a lot of hop bitterness actually in the flavor, especially it lingers after in the aftertaste. This reminds me of a lot of like late 90s Pacific Northwest beers, like going to brew pubs in Seattle and Portland, Oregon. Like these are the things, like if you didn't want to get like an IPA and you wanted to get an amber, this is what you got. This is what you got.
Maybe a little crisper than this.
Well,
but
yes,
but this is the style. A lot of amber, a lot of amber malt, a lot of crystal character, for sure. A lot of malt, like really heavy malt forward.
And a lot of American hop bitterness, and that's what I'm getting here.
This yeast was the Mangrove Jack's M42, the New World Strong Ale yeast or something, which thank goodness that used that, because it's supposed to have a slightly higher alcohol tolerance, supposed to be a fairly aggressive fermenter. This would be really struggling if it was like SO4 or something like that, right? It would have pooped out early for sure.
Was that a yeast that was a part of the recipe?
Yes, that was a recipe yeast. And I pulled that yeast. When I scaled it up and I really looked at it and I looked at this, wow, pound of C40, a pound of C80, I just thought, well, I'm just going to stay true to the recipe though, because that's what it is. I just want to see how it comes out. But man, I don't know who's developing that recipe over there, but this is aggressive.
I was going to say, well, like, what do you think they were getting at? In this, like, I know this was the first year that we actually looked and brewed the recipe. So what do you were they trying to like go back to their early days?
I mean,
like 20 years ago?
It was intended to be a 1 gallon batch, because I think smaller batches, smaller than 5 gallons, is becoming more and more popular. It's stovetop ready, right, and stuff like that. I think looking at the recipe, you can tell that I think the recipe is just it uses nugget, Amarillo, and EKG, which is like a really interesting blend of choices in the first place. I think they're going for character. They want to make sure you've got character in this
characters.
beer, as opposed to just having, 4 pounds of DME and steep like a 1/4 pound of C40 in there. Which would be perfectly fine. You can make yourself a Sierra Nevada clone pretty quickly that way at the homebrew scale. If there are any extract brewers who are watching this and they want some clarification or a little bit of advice on anything we've said with extract brewing, just shoot us a comment, message us through the website. We're more than happy to talk about extract brewing. But, I think that the AHA was just sort of going for something that would have a lot of color. And because amber ale is not something you see a lot anymore.
Not anymore.
I think that's part of the intention here. It just seems to be a little bit over the top flavor-wise.
Yeah, I think it's like it's turned up to 11 on all the different.
I should have scaled this to 3 gallons, but left it at 5 ounces, and 5 ounces would have made a lot of sense to me, just to me.
I agree.
But whatever, it is what it is.
Screaming.
And I'm pretty good at math, so I'm pretty sure I got it right. But
it's screaming like all cylinders here. Like certainly from. I mean, the only thing I'm not getting is like, I'm glad that Mangrove Jack yeast did what it needed to do, because on the specialty malt side and the hop side, it's just like,
even that Mangrove Jack jumped in there and said, "Woo! It's 1992.
We're going nuts." It's like, it's the Pacific Northwest. We're in our own brew pub. It's like I talked like I've been there for a long time. I went there once, but like. The beer memories.
You're an expert. Yeah, the beer memories last a lifetime.
last a lifetime. Like, especially when you're, a young guy and you're just getting into craft brewing, well, just craft beer first of all as a drinker, and you're going to these places and you know, IPAs. I mean, these were West Coast IPAs before we called them that. You know, they were just like these bitter bombs, and you're like, really? This is what people like? And then, you know, your amber ales were like, yeah, it's gonna be as bitter, but we're just gonna like spike up the crystal malts too, to have that as like an overwhelming flavor compound as
the
well.
malt character reminds me a lot of the northeastern beers we would drink in the early aughts, late 90s, that have a lot of English character to them, right? Just not the hop profile here, but very similar to this without the hop profile. Just a lot of our favorite Maine-based breweries when we were wee lads. Those breweries have a very heavy English influence from shipyard brewing, and this reminds me of that too a little bit. At least the malt bill character.
Oh, absolutely. If you switched out this with like Fuggles for the hops, or an EKG, and then you know the Ringwood strain.
Yeah. This is this almost reminds me of Geary's winter Hampshire ale. Like that almost was what this is.
That's what this is. Yeah, just with a little tweak.
We're reminiscing.
Yeah, sorry you had to come down that lane. Jeez. All right, so that's Mike's diatribe on, you know, the biggest homebrew association beer that's out there.
And I love the HA.
Yeah.
No hate.
No, this is just our experience with it. So if you brewed it as well, leave us a comment below. If you're part of the AHA like member board, let us also know, because
revoke our memberships.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all right. So sorry. But anyway, leave a comment. Say hello. We'll say hi back. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel, because we do this kind of stuff every single week. For John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. Brew on.
Cheers.
Oh boy.
I almost can't sip it.
Dude.
I almost can't sip it.